Welcome back to Mind Your Own Business on the UR Business Network. This is Rick Brutti, along with my great co-host, Mr. Marshall Sturman.
Mister, how did I get that?
I'm getting more and more respect for you every day,
Oh,
Marshall.
thank you, Rick.
You know, Marshall, I'm very excited here to introduce our next guest. We've got Bob Weiss, who I've known for many years. He used to be a senior VP at Lehman Brothers, Drexel, Berman, Lambert back in the 80s. He was a star, Wall Street star of old, I guess, and owned his own firm in the 90s. But he kind of like disappeared. I haven't seen him in years and years and years, so he's back. And Bob, you've had a great successful career in the business, and you're always on top of the market and know how to spot trends. So what's new? First of all, what's new and where you been?
Well, I left the securities business in the late 90s. The reason I did is after Drexel, I had my own firm for many years. I found that I really was not enjoying it anymore. Didn't like the responsibility of managing other people's money. Especially, I didn't find it stimulating when you talk about companies like IBM, AT&T. I can't kick it. I can't feel it. I can't advise about these companies. I just saw no logic in telling people to buy it. And with the gyrations of the market, too difficult an environment to have any confidence in what I was doing. I began raising money for small startups with some degree of success. Then I had massive personal successes by using my database contacts over the years and truly doing something substantive for small public startups and creating interest and demand through my network. Of course, that was during the dot-com boom, so I was an automatic hero, and I had the foresight to know when to get out, and hence the year 2000 was my last full year in the securities business.
Wow, that's been quite a while. That's 12 years ago,
Yep.
according to my calculations, Marshall. So, Bob, there's been so many changes in regulations, and is that one of the reasons you moved out of there, and it's just so difficult?
Absolutely. I decided to pursue things that interested me personally, and I could use my personal skill sets to create values. I looked at trends, politics, the economy, and fortunately, I made a lot of money in the low-income housing business in the early part of the 2000s, other forms of real estate speculation and development. The Dodd-Frank legislation may very well have been the catalyst that killed our economy, but it was also a great opportunity to see rising prices. And we all knew when we were involved with this that eventually it would end, but it was a great bubble, almost like participating in the dot-com boom again. Anyways, in the year 2006, which was the last good real estate year, I pretty much retired. I now have a 3-year-old son, and I have another son that just started college. And I see an opportunity and wanted to use my personal creativity to get back into Wall Street. And there are a few sweet spots that are not being addressed by many of the IRPR analysts, funds, brokers, that I felt this sweet spot was something I could take advantage of as I have in the past.
So give us what is this sweet spot, Bob? This sounds exciting.
Well, it appears, not to sound a little schmaltzy here, but it seems like the stars are connecting. When you look at massive amounts of government regulation of the securities industry, even proprietary rules that are set forth by individual broker-dealers and clearing firms, compliance issues, I see an opportunity that I've never seen before. I consider myself to be a businessman first and a banker/broker secondly. If you look at the environment and difficulty for small public companies, many companies went public on low-end exchanges like the Pink Sheets, even the Abex, under the assumption that this would be their ticket to obtain capital, almost analogous to Adam and Eve and the forbidden fruit. There's a lot of real companies that are trapped in this environment. They have no brokerage firm sponsorship, and they have no wherewithal. And they're turning to all kinds of crazy ideas with email blasting companies and all kinds of conferences that aren't doing anything significant for them. The problem is that the prestigious firms, the venture funds, cannot even look at them because of the current environment of regulation. And these companies are literally being fleeced by what I like to call vulture capitalists. And they're sitting on stock exchanges where 99% of the member companies on these exchanges are, pardon my French, not even real companies. That is a fact, and in hindsight, these good companies or opportunities probably regret that they went this route. My skill set essentially is in finding these companies through my prior knowledge, analyzing their stock structure, raise capital for my base if it's needed, and reintroduce the company to Wall Street analysts, bankers, brokers, create value that's missing. A lot more to the methods, but because of the improvements that we have now in the information age, I see something unique and different that we're capable of doing for companies, and that is I come equipped with partners this time around. I've created an organization consisting of a partner of mine who was a senior vice president for 6 public medical companies and actually has won awards for branding of different medical component devices. And he retired from the public marketplaces and decided he wanted to get involved with me in being able to brand companies. He was a director of marketing, as I said, for 6 medical companies. He also has worked as the head of marketing for a Fortune 500 company selling military products worldwide. Point that I make here is, besides being a consultant on a public level for these companies, we actually have the ability to make sales, and through our contact base, potentially we could develop strategic relationships and grant money. I also have with me possibly one of the oldest CIA agents in the United States. Ray has a resume a mile long, working in the military at the highest levels, CIA, government intelligence work. But we have the ability to open up markets for the right companies, to literally make sales, show our deals, most importantly, to strategic investors, funds, VCs, and get actual grants for companies that are in the medical business, solar and renewables through our network. Our credentials bring in something else, and that's professional print and television mediums. And through Gary Calvinesso, who as I had mentioned, was a director of marketing, EVP for many public companies, we have a social media solution that is second to none. Essentially, we're looking for companies that we can really make a difference in the bottom line in many ways.
Bob, are there a lot of companies that fit this profile that are languished? You know, they went public and they're just sitting there. They can't get money. They can't get support.
We have been scanning many of the public company symbols. It's a long and arduous task, I might add. Most of my business comes from referrals from bankers, analysts, and we've spent a lot of time being an ex-stockbroker from the 80s. I'm not bashful about picking up a telephone.
I've seen you in action. You are good.
Bob, what was the name of your firm, by the way?
Clayton Securities.
You're at Clayton.
Yeah.
Cal Clayton?
No. Clayton Securities was myself and a partner of mine who was from Clayton, Missouri.
Oh, I see.
That's how we got the name.
Well, we had one of the first brokers in the country that was a discount broker was Clayton Securities here in Boston. That's why that name came to mind.
Interesting. Someone else had told me there was another Clayton Securities. The point is, though, that I know Wall Street. I can pick up a telephone for the right companies, get retail brokers involved, get institutional investors involved. Even if they don't get involved, the one thing I can pretty much promise, because I know these folks, they'll at least look at the deal. If it's a medical deal, I know what medical professionals to look at the deal. It's paint by numbers then, and getting the right eyeballs onto the subject matter, the right biopharma funds, money managers, brokers. I am essentially the pitch man. But the interesting thing about our environment today that nobody seems to realize, if the name of your company is XYZ and you make widgets, all I have to do is look on the computer at all your competitors, and I literally could pick off the names of every fund that ever got involved in any of the competitors. I could compare you almost immediately to all your competitors. I know exactly where to go, and as I said earlier, I'm not bashful about picking up
Yeah,
the
Bob,
telephone.
if someone picked up the phone and called you, they were a small company that felt that they were really left alone out there, and you felt you could help them, you did your due diligence, what type of an arrangement would you make with them?
Well, the problem here in the United States, most of the decent companies that were possibly ill-advised or whatever to go public on the lower-end exchanges are not able to monetize me the way that naturally I would want to be. So it's almost forced me sometimes to be an angel investor. I'll look at their capital structure, see where they're selling, where they could be selling. We implement the plan, and the plan is not just Bob Weiss and what I can do, but bringing along Ray Humphrey. Colonel Humphrey has a Rolodex longer than anybody in the military probably. And Gary Calvinesso, who has not only the smarts for social media, but he has a Rolodex from years and years in the medical and military business. What we'll do is we'll analyze a company, we'll look at what their capital structure looks at, what their needs are, and we'll make some sort of arrangement and work on restricted stock. We also will see significant monies for ourselves, naturally, if we're instrumental in putting together financing for them. I'm more intrigued than ever in looking for the right companies that we could pick up the phone and Gary can devise the right PowerPoints and marketing materials to go over grant money.
Bob, can you give some examples of some of the deals that you're working on or you've done?
It's not fair for me to sit here and huck my wares, or I don't want to say buy XYZ or ABC. That's not what we really do for a living. If people like my approach, I'd love them to call me on the phone. We are constantly cultivating and seeing a larger audience of people that we can go to on our deals, and also a lot of CEO, CFO types or investment bankers or analysts that see what we're all about. Our main focus is very simple. We want a deal that we see as undervalued. We want a proactive CEO or CFO, and we're not running the business, so we're betting heavily on management continuing or improving their current circumstances. But we're able to do a job that they don't have the time to do. That job is to analyze their structure. Their structure is what's put them in the position that they're in. It's almost like since the last decade, I've been in the real estate business. When I build a house, the first thing I do is I dig a hole and I put in the foundation. The problem with these companies that are U.S. based, that are on these low exchanges, unfortunately, we're brought in after they built the foundation. We're not knocking the house down, but we're going to have to do some very hard work, roll up our sleeves to get the valuation out on Main Street and to get the valuation out, most importantly, for credibility purposes on Wall Street.